listen, never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Can't get enough baseball. Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
There's no human being on the planet I'd rather be talking to more than John Mamola right now. Man. John, thanks for joining Sports Editor Columnist, Barrett Sports Media. I love Barrett Sports Media. Everybody should go. I get the newsletter, and it is one of the better newsletters. You guys do such a good job, and the content that you crank out is awesome, and it hits a sweet spot for people. I think not only for people like me, but I think for people across the board. I mean, I think sports media is sort of behind the curtain stuff, and people love behind the curtain stuff. I mean, you would probably agree. First of all, hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Yeah, no, I totally concur. Like I worked in broadcast radio for about 20 years myself, so I was always kind of interested in the behind the scenes of how like television viewership and kind of the metrics and the data of how that is all compiled and all that kind of stuff. Working in the radio setting where we kind of knew what the Nielsen system was with the PPM system. And, we started, kind of inserting some digital, metrics into that. But yeah, man, I mean, I was a fan of Barrett Media when I was working in radio, and now I'm on this side of the glass, to use a radio term.
Yeah. So like you said, the newsletter, everyone should subscribe to the newsletter. It's a great way to start the day. I know it comes out a couple times, but 8 a.m. I mean, this is another thing. You guys, man, religiously, good for you. Good for you. Boom. 8 a.m. comes. I know man. I know when it's 8 a.m. because I'm getting my Barrett Sports Media newsletter. But so as we taped this yesterday, I got the aforementioned newsletter, and there was a column done by you, which I scratched right where I itch, which was, and here's the title of it: Why a World Series Without the Los Angeles Dodgers Won't Tank Viewership. And then the subhead, a quote, Major League Baseball is a beneficiary of right place, right time. So I had kind of been thinking about this in the back of my mind and going through, and I want you to sort of summarize it in a second, but it is interesting, John, and I know you mentioned this, but it is interesting. You go back to the last two World Series where polar opposites, right?
Yep.
Major League Baseball last year gets their perceived gift.
Yep.
Dodgers and Yankees. They do a documentary on it. I'm there. It's just a different, because the year before it was the Diamondbacks, and we love the Diamondbacks, one of our favorite teams, some of our favorite people, and the Texas Rangers, same thing, but sort of a sad trombone perceived for MLB.
For sure.
The average fan, like, oh, really? Okay. What's going on? What's happening? So anyway, all that said, because of those two things, now you're going into this. Now you have these markets that some are leading toward the Diamondbacks Rangers world. And obviously you still have the Dodgers in the mix. You're like, well, what's going to happen here? You laid out so well in this column. There's a lot to pick through, but I want you to sort of summarize it if you can.
Well, I think the first thing we need to remember moving into this fall classic is that the measurement system has changed. We used to have, through Nielsen, which is the company that measures television viewership, measures television rates, kind of the gold standard for these networks, because basically what Nielsen tells them is what allows them to kind of, figure out their ad rates for advertisers to attach to things like the Fall Classic, postseason baseball, you can say NFL, NBA, whatever. On September 1st, there's actually been two changes with Nielsen this year. So earlier in the year, they expanded what's called their out-of-home measurement, which means the traditional way, speaking of the Rangers and the Diamondbacks, even the Dodgers and Yankees last year, the traditional way of measurement was on the traditional Nielsen system. It was basically equipment that was installed in a home, didn't count bars, didn't count restaurants, didn't count airports, none of that. Didn't even count streaming for the most part. And that was the traditional way of measuring. So last year's World Series, I think it averaged around 15 million people for the World Series, which again is the crown jewel. You got Dodgers, Yankees. Obviously, that's going to draw great numbers in the traditional method. But now moving into this year, the out of home has expanded to bars, restaurants, airports, televisions that you and I go to, sharing a beer with our buddies. Let's go watch the game. But also it's expanded starting in September to this big data and plus panel, which includes the data from the traditional method that was used previously on top of the out of home measurement. And now on top of this new measurement, which includes big data, which includes basically streaming services. They've got deals with Comcast. They've got deals with DirecTV. They've got deals with Dish Network. They've got deals with streaming platforms to gather data from streaming entities. They didn't have that last year. So what we've seen since September 1st, and if you're following sports, you see it all the time. NFL viewership is up massive numbers year over year. NHL opening night, I think there was like 2 games. That was up 37% on ESPN. Hockey viewership going up 37% at opening night is like a landmark achievement for the league, right? But again, it's because of this new way of measurement, mostly. Now, look, I'm not saying that less people are watching hockey. I'm not saying so many more people are watching hockey. It's just that the measurement system has changed. So therefore, by doing that with Nielsen, it's benefiting all of these networks with these live sports entities to say, hey, we're up 22%, year over year when it comes to Sunday night football. But really, is 22% of the country watching more football? Probably not. It's just the way that the numbers have been measured versus the traditional numbers, that the way they've been measured.
Well, very well said, very well put. And so the first thing that jumps to mind, like, holy mackerel, how archaic were we? How archaic.
Oh, no kidding.
I mean, it's and I know that you and I have lived this life of this measurements of meters and everything else. It's like, what? People don't understand this. It's like,
right.
And so, but I don't know if you have that same reaction. I know you know it, but when you lay that out like that, we're like, oh my goodness, how archaic were we in measuring this stuff?
Right. I mean, look, technology changes the way we consume content. I mean, we see this in radio. You and I have radio backgrounds, right? People aren't necessarily listening to the live and local on the traditional radio anymore. They're streaming it on their phones. They're consuming it on demand. Podcasts have definitely made their way, into kind of cutting into that demographic for, actual audio content. YouTube is a big player into that too. With the video and the algorithm and discoverability of podcasts and audio platforms and that kind of matter. I mean, the way radio is measured still to this day, and look, I've been out of the radio industry, working in it for almost a year now. But basically, think of it like a pager. Like, who the hell wears a pager anymore? Like, I had a pager when I was in high school, like 25 years ago, and we were just sending messages that we could flip upside down to our buddies, right? Yeah. That's basically how it is now. It's basically a pager that you wear somewhere on your body. It could be a watch, it could be a pager, and then you dock it at night. Look, world's too busy for that kind of stuff. But like you said, it is kind of an arcane way of measuring how people consume content. And what Nielsen has done, at least on the television side, is they're starting to move into more of those algorithms or metrics that people are now consuming. Because look, people have been cutting the cord for years. Nielsen had to adjust for their clients, who are the television networks.
Okay, so we have the adjustment and we see the boost in all these sports, which is, all the sports are going, thank you, Nielsen. Thank you. Right. But, then there's okay, what is reality? Like, with baseball, sure, your numbers are up, but are they at the levels they should be? Where are they? They're not going to touch football. We all get that. Like, that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
But everybody's like, baseball's dying. Look at the numbers compared to the WNBA or whatever it is. But the other thing, John, is that baseball, I think, is finally starting to understand a lot of what you're talking about, a lot of this other stuff, even in the last couple of years, because baseball's been chasing their tail when it comes to marketing, when it comes to all this stuff. Where do you feel like baseball is at right now in adjusting to all this the new way people are consuming everything, whether it's podcasts, whether it's streaming, whether it's, whatever it is? How do you think they're doing?
I think baseball has the same problem that the NBA has. I think it's a little too fragmented. Like, look, I remember the days when I could come home and I could turn on Comcast Sportsnet. I could watch the Cubs. I could watch the White Sox, whichever one of the two channels, right? Because that was the destination. The problem is now you have Roku, you have Apple, you have all the local RSNs between FanDuel, Sportsnet that you have to pay for now, whether it's the app or the direct channel, Nesson in Boston. You have all these different entities now where you can find your local baseball team. I think the Yankees were on, I believe, 4 or 5 different networks like within a month span. Like that doesn't help the sports fan experience of following your team. And especially, and I wrote about this actually earlier this year, when you have to constantly pay more to get less of your baseball team, that actually hurts the fan experience. And baseball, prices to attend games aren't going down either. So yes, everything is getting more expensive. But the NBA, they begin their new media rights this year. It's an 11-year deal. They got agreements with Amazon Prime, NBC, ESPN, and Disney. They're also very fragmented. In fact, they're putting out information now on social media, like where you have to go to find the national broadcast. Now, look, the local broadcasts only get interrupted from the national broadcast. So if you're in Boston,
Sure,
Celtics are going to be on a number of teams or a number of channels, right? Because they're that big of a national draw. You're not going to have that if you're the Memphis Grizzlies. You're not going to have that if you're,
not to interrupt you, but the Red Sox, they had their clinching game this year on Apple TV.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's a perfect example of it. So I think there's still a little bit too much fragmentation from baseball's perspective. I'm sure Rob Manfred would say that too. They are renegotiating some media deals for next year, which is going to add baseball on Netflix. It's going to add it on NBC. It's going to add it on Peacock. ESPN will still have some games. They're not going to have Sunday Night Baseball. It's going to go to NBC. So, the fragmentation there, is it on NBC or is it on Peacock? It's just adding layers. But what it's setting up for is at the end of the 2028 baseball season, what the commissioner wants to do is kind of find a way to consolidate it a little bit to make it easier on the fan. Now, the question is, can he do that? Maybe. But at the same time, what is that also going to cost the fan? Because let's just say ESPN is in the business of saying, hey, we want all of it. Well, fine, ESPN is going to pay a premium for that, which in turn will then go to the consumer. So in the end, is baseball in a good situation? I mean, they're as fragmented as ever, but I think it's only going to get worse potentially for the cost of the consumer moving forward.
I think that also when we talk about the here and the now too, right? This is where the jumping off point was the postseason. And it's like a lot of these sports. Hockey is probably maybe the biggest, the one where you're like, hey, the regular season, don't bother me. But the playoffs, it's a completely different thing. We watched the postseason. It's been great. It's been awesome. It's been drama filled. They're able to show the fans on their feet, like clenching their nails, like every single pitch. People love that. So we get it with the postseason. But I just wondered, like, in terms of baseball, which is what we're talking about in terms of popularity and people consuming it, do you think that broadcasts are adjusting enough to also to do this, to do their part? In other words, the pitch clock obviously helps, right? For broadcasts, sometimes it can be a nightmare. I know for a lot of broadcasts, when the last pitch is thrown in an inning, they're going to commercial before the pitch is basically thrown, because they're like, we got to go.
They got to hurry up and
we got to go. We got to go.
Time.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm always fascinated about how things are presented, whether it's analytics, whether it's stories, whether it's information. How do you feel like that baseball broadcasts are? Because we both all know broadcasts who have been trained a certain way have I want to be beholden to the way it's always been done, and it isn't the way it's always been done. I don't know. I have my thoughts, but I'm really interested in getting yours.
I think we're moving more into an era like, look, the new metrics, the new way they're measuring television viewership is obviously going to help. But moving into next year, then you're really going to find out how much it really helped, because it could continue to go up, but it also could continue to go down because cord cutting, again, is not slowing down. I think from a presentation standpoint, look, my kids, I got a 17-year-old son, got a 12-year-old daughter. Neither one of them are into sports, which is amazing because I've been working in sports media for about 2 decades. But anyway, their generation is not tied to baseball or sports in general like you and You and me.
Mm.
I remember, watching games on the one channel, listening to games on the radio, going to games with my dad and sitting in the outfield, trading baseball cards with my buddies, during the summer months, right? The kids today, because of technology, just simply don't have that. If it's not contained within a 30-second interval, they lose complete attraction to actually watching that type of content. That's where baseball saw we need to do the pitch clock. We need to speed up these games because just the lack of awareness and attention with those not only watching in the stands but also watching on television. We're just going to be losing that if we just stay doing what we've always been doing. What I would like to see the networks do is kind of put it more like an entertainment value on your broadcast. Screw the analytics. Okay. The analytics are for like the top 2% of baseball nerds.
Which, by the way, not to interrupt you, but that's how they initially thought they were going to evolve. Right,
exactly. And that was a mistake because, again, you're taking the traditional fan and you're trying to sound too smart for them. And instead of doing that, why not just try to entertain the traditional fan by putting in maybe these kind of off the wall kind of things to insert into the broadcast? We've seen this with the other leagues too. The NFL's doing games on Nickelodeon. I mean, they're appealing to 8 to 15-year-olds to see if we can get them interested in football by applying the broadcast to their demographic. I'm not saying that baseball's got to make it stupid and silly with all kinds of streamers all over the place, but at the same time, I think the viewing experience, it just has to be more entertaining as opposed to analytical. And if you can do that, and look, the way that sports gambling has exploded in this country, that's another new way that baseball can begin to, work in some content. So what's to say? I mean, the NBA is doing this on Amazon this year. They're putting in live lines during the broadcast that you can opt into to watch. There is an audience for that. What's to say that doesn't dabble into the experience a little bit? That way you're using your money to gamble on their product, which instantly puts an instant attachment on the actual outcome of the game, but it's through the sports book that MLB is promoting, which makes them more money. So the viewing experience is just going to continue to change. I think where they're at right now is kind of still where they've been at. It's not a very entertaining broadcast. The baseball's great, but you're not really putting a lot of things in there to appeal to a younger generation outside of the people playing on the field.
Well, as you said, the attention span is nil. I remember having this argument with some older talk radio hosts that like, the games are so late, you're losing the audience. Well, here's the news flash. Kids are going to wake up, watch their Bleacher Report app, get the highlights, and that's going to be that. Like it is what it is. But the attention span and the entertainment, and another thing, and that's really interesting about the gambling stuff, which is like another 10-hour conversation, especially spawning off of, the whole threat stuff. But it is, I having done some broadcasts, I do feel like the stories, entertainment and the stories, people say, put it this way, John, a few years ago, we had a program director who basically said, we want to be more like a talk show. Now, some broadcasters took that as, what are you talking about? You're taking calls during the game? Like what? No, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about more conversational. And then here's the pitch, more conversational. And here's the pitch. Maybe for TV, integrating the sideline reporter more with a back and forth and, all of this stuff. But ultimately, I think to your point, we can't do it like we did before because the attention spans, if you want to get in the other new crowd, we just can't. Like we can't.
The different things appeal to different audiences. And if you want to attract you already got the baseball audience. So if you want to grow, baseball audience with people that traditionally don't watch baseball, you have to give them something that typically baseball doesn't deliver on. Look at what ESPN does with the College Football National Championship. You got like 5 different broadcasts you could watch. And look at the different talent that they utilize. It appeals to different types of fans of college football, or just overall. Like they had McAfee just standing on the sideline talking to his buddies the entire game. That's like a watch along. Look at what Barstool's doing with all NFL Sunday. They're sitting in a room, they're watching games, they're betting a little bit of scratch on it, and they're conversing because they're personalities. It's different things for different audiences. And if baseball can kind of pick and choose what works for other people and try to apply it to their product, then that's the win moving into
So the last thing is the challenge of that with baseball, I think, is that it's longer. So in other words, like I've seen these baseball try to roll out these alt casts, like the
Yeah.
Manning cast things.
Yeah.
It's a lot different. It's longer. It's more methodical. It's you have to keep the conversation going. And then
Yeah,
you
it's
have
not
to,
constant action. It's just like calling a game.
right, right. And so it's I think everyone's trying to figure this out. And I think including to go back to baseball, they're trying to figure it out. I mean, I've said this a million times, John. Holy mackerel, you talk about chasing your own tail. Baseball, it wasn't that long ago that you can only put two colors on a cleat. They're like
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
it's crazy.
And now you got
So
the City Connect jerseys, which
oh
some are great. So I mean that but again, that's diving into a culture because it's flashy. It's like this is us. Like I'm a White Sox fan. South Side and Old English with the
yeah.
black and white that hits in that market. I live in Tampa Bay. The skater culture out here,
Mhm.
which that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
But it's in Tampa. It's not in St. Pete. So you're doing the culture of one section of the city to apply it to the whole area, which just didn't fit. But again, you're trying. I mean, look, baseball is trying. When Bud Selig was the commissioner, baseball was not trying.
Yeah.
So whatever you think of Rob Manfred and of what he's done so far as a commissioner, at least he's thinking forward as opposed to leaning on what worked in the past.
This is the last thing. So in synopsis, we talk about baseball. Hey, listen, Milwaukee or Toronto, Milwaukee, Seattle, don't worry about it. Don't People will tune in because baseball's in a much healthier place. And the rating system aside, you still feel that when we land at the World Series, you feel like, okay, this is going to be a place where it's going to be even better than it was 2 years ago when we had the Arizona
Yep.
Texas dynamic, right?
I agree. And the way it's shaping up right now, it looks like it's going to be Dodgers and Mariners. I mean, they're up 2-0 and they're both going home. I mean, that's a tremendous matchup. It's two teams out west. It'll be interesting to kind of see how the East Coast audience applies to that. Because traditionally, when you have two teams from one section of the country, the other side of the country just doesn't tune in like
right.
they would. So it'll be interesting to kind of see. And that's what made Yankees Dodgers even better outside of the two teams that were represented is that you had both, ends of the spectrum. You had the East Coast audience and the West Coast.
It was
audience.
perfect. Perfect.
It was a perfect storm for baseball, but it'll be interesting to kind of see how, the new methodology with the measurement applies to whoever plays in the World Series, because I mean, there was some big fears when you saw the Final Four. It was like, oh God, what if the Dodgers don't make it, right? I don't think it's really going to be that big of a dip because of the new measurement. And I think baseball is going to celebrate that too.
Well, I celebrate your good work, my friend. Sports editor, columnist, Barrett Sports Media. Excellent. Keep up the good work. I really appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate the invite. Thank you.